From that day forward, Talia fought a desperate, bloody war to tear herself free from the shackles of her oldest habit, her love for Barkas. She had tried to carve the feelings from her heart before, but never with such savage determination. She shoved the velvet surcoat he had chosen for her into the darkest corner of her wardrobe, and instead began wearing the dresses that had always made his mouth thin with disapproval. She threw herself into the whirlpool of the Empress's nightly balls. And Barkas, bound by his duty as her personal knight, was forced to follow her into the fray. For a man who had been raised with the ascetic discipline of a monk until the age of 14, the decadence of the Imperial court must have been repulsive. But Talia found no comfort there either. At those galas, surrounded by her mother's admirers, she was nothing more than a miniature replica of Senevier. The men, seeing the face of the golden demon grafted onto a young, still maturing body, treated Talia as an amusing novelty. A plaything. Some were open in their lecherous interest. It sickened her to be treated as a mere substitute for her mother, but she forced herself to smile, pretending to revel in the attention. She wanted to hurl it in Barkas's face. "Look at what you threw away," she thought as she danced. I will be more beautiful than Ayla. I will be as beautiful as the Empress herself. She wanted him to see how many men lusted after her. And somewhere, buried deep beneath her spite, she nursed a pathetic hope that he would step in. That he would stop her. But Barkas, as always, carried out his duties in total silence. He didn't care if she drank until the room spun, if she tangled herself in the arms of strange men, or if she flirted with lords old enough to be her grandfather. His indifference only poured oil onto the fire of her self-destruction. He has stood by my side for 7 years. Could he not worry for me, even a little? Could he not try to hold me back? It was a foolish thought, but she couldn't shake it. She convinced herself that if she ruined herself completely, she would finally burn away the pathetic attachment she had to him. With a sense of grim doom, she began to surround herself with unfamiliar men. She allowed them to touch her hands, to stroke her hair, to graze her cheek. Even when they leaned in too close to breathe in her scent or let their fingers linger on the nape of her neck, she forced herself to laugh. It repulsed her, the way they handled her like a fragile porcelain doll, but there was a twisted validation in their rapturous, hungry stares. They looked at her as if they were praying to a goddess. In those fleeting moments of worship, her failure to win Barkas ceased to matter. She clung to that intoxicating validation like a drowning woman. She believed that if she drowned herself in these heady, vulgar games, her naive, girlish love would eventually suffocate and die. She waded deeper into the dangerous currents of the court, growing accustomed to the ambiguous jokes, the lingering touches, and the perilous games played on the edge of ruin. It wasn't long into this dark descent that a nobleman from the south, a man named Margus, approached her. At first, she paid him no mind. Though she entertained a different rotation of men every evening, none of them ever lodged in her memory. But gradually, Margus became a constant fixture. He drew her attention by acting entirely differently from the rest. He treated her not as a conquest, but as a capricious child or a favored niece. He seemed genuinely concerned for her well-being and frequently offered her gentle, unsolicited advice. Initially, Talia was irritated by his presumption, but slowly, her guard began to drop. Unlike the others, who sought any excuse to lay their hands on her, Margus maintained a respectful distance. His demeanor was consistently warm and friendly. More importantly, he seemed to care only about making her laugh. Instead of showering her with heavy jewels or provocative gowns, he brought her mechanical toys and intricate puzzles, his intentions seemingly entirely innocent. With Margus, Talia felt a rare, fragile sense of peace. Perhaps, she thought, he saw her for what she truly was, a child starving for affection. He navigated the maze of her vulnerabilities with terrifying ease. And it was he who would tear down the fragile castle of trust she had built, on a quiet evening just 4 days before her coming-of-age ceremony. Late that night, while Barkas was away on a shift rotation, Margus appeared unannounced at her quarters. Talia was initially wary of the sudden intrusion, but his cheerful, booming voice quickly melted her suspicions. "Look, Your Highness! I finally tracked down that puzzle I was telling you about," he exclaimed, holding up a large, ornate wooden box. "You have no idea the effort it took to acquire this. I haven't worked this hard even to find a gift for His Majesty." He puffed out his chest with mock pride, then rubbed the back of his neck, his expression shifting to one of sheepish apology. "Truthfully, I meant to save this for your birthday. But I have been called away on urgent business to the south tomorrow morning, so I had to bring it now. Will you forgive my terrible manners for disturbing you at such an hour?" He looked at her with the wide, eager eyes of a wet hound. Talia sighed, a small smile breaking through. "Well, I suppose nothing can be done. Come in." He beamed and stepped over the threshold. Aside from her maids and her knights, Margus was the first person to ever set foot inside her private residence. Suddenly self-conscious of the clutter in her usual spaces, she led him past the dusty, unused drawing room and up to the small study on the second floor, the only room, aside from her bedroom, that was kept meticulously clean. They sat at a small chess table and opened the box. Talia quickly became engrossed in assembling the intricate wooden pieces to form the spire of a miniature castle. She was so focused that she hardly noticed when Margus shifted his chair, positioning his knees on either side of her legs. She frowned in concentration, trying to slot the tiny wooden columns into place. Margus leaned in close, his hands hovering over hers to help steady the fragile structure. "There," she murmured as the tower clicked into place. She smiled with satisfaction. But as she looked up, she realized just how intimately close he was. A sudden wave of awkwardness washed over her. Margus leaned in even further, pressing so near that she could feel the heat of his breath, heavy and sour with wine, tickling her forehead. Talia shifted uncomfortably in her chair, but she hesitated to pull away sharply, not wanting to shatter the friendly atmosphere. She turned her head slightly, pretending to search the wooden box for the next piece. Without warning, Margus moved behind her chair. As if reaching to help her look, he extended his arms on either side of her waist, boxing her in against the table. "Ah, here it is," he murmured. Talia went completely rigid. Thick, muscular arms wrapped tightly around her waist, locking her in place. She felt his hot, moist breath fanning against the sensitive skin of her neck. Her heart began to hammer against her ribs, a wild, frantic drumbeat of terror. This was wrong. This was entirely, horrifically wrong. But a strange paralysis had seized her, her throat closed up, and she couldn't force a single sound past her lips. He pressed his heavy body against her back, his hands digging blindly into the wooden box as an excuse to pull her tighter against him. Talia managed to force a choked whisper from her throat. "Oh. Please. Let go. Just a minute," Margus breathed, his voice thick and slurred. You smell so sweet, Talia." He buried his nose into the curve of her shoulder and inhaled deeply. Every nerve in Talia's body snapped taut. A cold, dreadful sweat broke out across her skin, and a violent shudder of revulsion tore down her spine.